Application of Social Cognitive Theory on Dietary Behavior Change, a critique oral presentation. Social cognitive theory was developed by Albert Bandura and encapsulates an understanding of how people acquire and regulate their behavior through a combination of personal, social, and environmental influences. This theory has been applied to improve dietary behavior due to social cognitive theory's emphasis and that knowledge, self-efficacy, reinforcement, and environmental accessibility, all of which are contributing factors to changing behaviors or shaping health-related choices. The two articles that use social cognitive theory to understand dietary behaviors are Social Cognitive Predictors of Fruit and Vegetable Intake in Children and Social Cognitive Determinants of Dietary Behavior in University Employees. These articles both apply social cognitive theory to better understand healthy eating behaviors, with a specific emphasis on fruit and vegetable intake. However, these studies differ in their methods, populations, and research design. The first article is by Resnikow and colleagues and aims to determine which social cognitive constructs predict fruit and vegetable intake among third grade students. A large population of children participated in this study and were assessed using multiple social cognitive theory variables, including self-efficacy, outcome expectations, fruit and vegetable preferences, social norms, asking skills, and health knowledge. The participants' fruit and vegetable intake were recorded using a 7-day food diary. In the analysis, multiple social cognitive theory variables were significantly associated with fruit and vegetable intake. When all variables were considered in their model, only two of the variables were found to be significant predictors, these being preferences and positive outcome expectations. These two factors together accounted for approximately 10 to 11% of variance in the participants' dietary behaviors. The findings from this article highlight how there is an importance in children's food preferences and their beliefs of healthy eating, and how this affects healthy behaviors. A main strength of the study is that the population sample was large and diverse, as it included 1,398 third grade children and ranged in diversity in terms of race and gender, with 86% being white, 14% being African American, and half of the population being boys and half being girls. This makes the study more generalizable across similar populations. Another strength is that the assessment of the children was rigorous due to the use of the 7-day food diary. This resulted in a more comprehensive and accurate result. The study also has practical relevance because it can be used in real-world situations for dietary behavior changes. Interestingly, the article found that self-efficacy, a central idea in social cognitive theory, was not a significant predictor. The researchers suggested that this could be due to the measurement limitations of the study, or that the children had limited control over their food choices. Another limitation to the study is that it focuses on individual level variables without incorporation of environmental or parental influences that affect the participants' dietary behavior. This is interesting because social cognitive theory has a high emphasis on the effects of one's environment on behavior. Overall, this study suggests that social cognitive theory can be used to find useful insights into children's dietary behaviors, but it may not be sufficient enough on its own to fully explain or predict these behaviors. The second article by Dirksen and Macaulay applied social cognitive theory to an adult population of university employees who participated in a 6-month dietary intervention program. This program aimed to increase food and vegetable consumption. The study used a survey which was based on social cognitive theory and assessed self-efficacy, goals, social support, and outcome expectations regarding dietary behaviors. Dietary behaviors of participants were measured using food frequency questionnaires that captured the frequency and quantity of their fruit and vegetable consumption. The results from the study found that self-efficacy and goal setting were the stronger predictors of behavior change. The self-efficacy and dietary goals were significantly improved for participants who showed increased fruit and vegetable intake over the 6-month period. These improvements in social cognitive theory variables were associated with their corresponding improvements in behavior. This suggests that there is a dynamic relationship between improvements in variables and behaviors which evolve over a period. These findings are important because they show that targeting a specific social cognitive construct like self-efficacy and goal setting can make behavior change interventions more effective and sustainable over time. The main strength of this study is the use of a longitudinal research design, which allowed for a stronger inference of causality in comparison to cross-sectional studies. By assessing improvements in social cognitive theory constructs and outcomes in participants' behavior, the researchers demonstrate not just the associations, but directional effects of improvements. The study also involved a real-world setting of a university workplace, allowing for a real-world application and generalizability in working adult populations. While the study can be applied to this type of population, the study cannot be applied to broader adult populations. This includes those from lower socioeconomic backgrounds. The use of self-report in the assessment of dietary behavior is also a limitation because it may introduce bias or inaccuracy into the results due to effects such as underreporting or social desirability. When comparing the two articles, it is revealed that there are several key insights into the use of social cognitive theory and the limitations that may come with this when explaining dietary behavior. Firstly, the age and autonomy of the participants appear to be important variables in the effectiveness of social cognitive constructs. In the first study, the outcome of a weak influence of self-efficacy may reflect that children have limited control over their food environment. Even though a child may feel confident in choosing their foods, it does not mean that their behavior translates to other environments, such as school or home. In contrast, the university employees from the second study have full autonomy over their dietary choices, allowing for self-efficacy to have more of a direct impact on influencing dietary behavior. The design of the study can also have an impact on determining whether social cognitive constructs are predictive. The first study uses a cross-sectional design. This design may underestimate the influence of self-efficacy and goal setting, which are usually better understood as processes that change over time. The second study uses a repeated measures design, which allowed for an approach which tracks the changes of participants over a period and provided a more accurate understanding of these cognitive shifts, which can lead to a sustainable behavior change. Another distinction between the articles is the amount of social cognitive constructs that were used and measured. The first study involved a broad number of variables, including preferences, knowledge, social norms, and asking skills. Contrasting this, the second study was narrowly focused on self-efficacy, goals, and social support. The use of many variables in the first article could lead to confusing overlap in understandings, whereas a narrower approach may provide a clearer measurement. The two studies both offer an understanding of how social cognitive theory can be applied across different populations and contexts. They both suggest that social cognitive theory is a useful tool for understanding behavior change, specifically for dietary behaviors. However, the effectiveness of this is heavily dependent on how it is applied. For younger populations, social cognitive intentions may need to include environmental support to better translate cognitive intentions to behavior. For adult populations or those who have behavioral autonomy, social cognitive constructs such as self-efficacy and goal setting are seen to have more important roles in sustaining dietary changes. Overall, while both articles validate the usefulness of social cognitive frameworks, they highlight the need for tailoring interventions to specific needs and characteristics of participants. The strength of social cognitive theory is that it is flexible and comprehensive. However, this also means that interventions should be designed to a specific target population to increase its effectiveness. For future research, it would be beneficial to include the use of longitudinal designs, include environmental variables, and narrow measurement variables for a better understanding of the complexity of social cognitive constructs. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope this presentation provided valuable insights into social cognitive theory and how it can be applied to dietary behavior change.